This is the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV, with the Dean of Sports, Tim Staudt, and Steve Goff. Now, from the mobile Duckett Brothers Distributing Studios at the stadium, this is the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show.
Coming to you from the studios of the Lansing Sports Network, this is the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV on Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and 1240 WJIM, Lansing's Big Talker. Let Price Right RV show you how to experience all Michigan has to offer in a new RV. It's time to get out and enjoy the outdoors while you can. Colors and the leaves are changing. Visit Price Right RV in DeWitt on Old 27 and PriceRightRV.com. Don't plan your vacation, own your vacation with a new RV from Price Right. See Doug and his team and tell him we sent you. I'm your host, Steve Goff, from the Lansing Sports Network, joined by the longest tenured sports broadcaster in the state, Tim Staudt. You can catch him on Staudt on Sports every weekday from 10 to 1 on WVFN. And the man holding it all together behind the glass is Brock Palmbush. We're here till 2 ahead of the 3:30 p.m. kickoff in our studios, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. They never drop the ball. Speaking of people who don't drop the ball, joining us on the phone just to get the show started is one of Tim's WILX sports partners, our friend Owen Oszust. Hey, Owen, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Oh, boy. 3-3 after week number 6, fellas. A game that everyone expected Michigan State to win, some thinking they'd win it big, but by a little after 3:30 last Saturday, Owen, Tim, Spartan Nation was left scratching their heads, and I've got nothing beyond that. Let's talk about it, Tim.
Well, let me set Owen up. I mean, he covers Michigan State football extensively for us. He's on the sideline videotaping during all the home games, covers most, if not all, of the news conferences, covered all the preseason practices that were available to the media. I would suggest to you, amongst all the media people around, especially broadcast, Owen's probably been around Michigan State football more than anyone. So what he thinks about this afternoon's game with Indiana, you could go ahead and ask him. They're a, 27.5-point underdog today. And Owen, were you on the field last year when Indiana won here 47-10?
Yes, I was. I was actually receiving texts from you when Michigan State went up 10-0.
Yep.
Because you were big of predicting that upset, and then, things quickly changed, and by halftime that thing felt like it was over. I think it's important that they get out to a good start. Like on that fourth down in that loss to UCLA, you could really point to that play as a turning point, and it just felt like once they didn't get it on their own 34-yard line, things kind of spiraled out of control after that. I think it's important to avoid mistakes like that and just really play your cleanest style of football and try to force mistakes, because if you don't, like you guys are probably talking about, it's going to be a long day.
Okay, so Steve, to set that up, last year Indiana started 6-0.
Yeah.
And I wasn't on the bandwagon yet. And I kept telling the staff during the week, they said, who do you like? I said,
I remember.
What? I said, they're due to get beat. They're going on the road, and this is a tough place to play, right? Spartan Stadium, State's going to be all motive, blah, 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 blah. So with the staff, it's 10-0 Michigan State, and he's right. So I'm texting him. I told you guys, if you'd have told me at that moment that they're done scoring for the day and Indiana's going to hang 47 more on them. Now, they said, but during the week, Indiana will win. I mean, Owen's right. He picked Indiana all week long. But, Owen, what was bizarre about that was the way it was bizarre with the UCLA game last week, because Michigan State took it right down the field and scored. And against Indiana last year, they took it right down the field and scored. And to his point, when on that fourth down, it just seemed like the entire game. But it's amazing when a game turns early in the first quarter, as it did last week, right?
I would say, Owen, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I absolutely agree. I think to your point, you're right. Michigan State looks really good on a lot of their first drives. I think it's important that second drive that they continue the momentum and make a statement that that first drive was not a fluke, because if they can avoid that of making a stupid mistake on, the second drive, then they can continue that momentum and not have to be clawing their way back.
Owen, you've seen all the games this year, and I've been up in the press box too, and I got to tell you, What Tim just said about that opening drive, it seems like they just can't sustain it throughout the rest of the game. And it's happened in every game, even against USC and Nebraska. They struck early, but they just couldn't keep it going.
No, I mean, I would even point back to the Rutgers game. If you remember that game to end last season, when Michigan State went right down the field and scored immediately and then did not score the rest of the game. So I think it's important, like I said, to continue. Yeah, like we've seen on those first drives that they can have success and score, but it's important to show throughout the entirety of a game and multiple drives that you can sustain that success. Indiana's going to score the football. They will score a lot of points. So I think it's up to Aiden Childs to have a really good game today. And I think finding Nick Marsh is really important too, because I see sometimes that he's wide open and they won't go to him. They can't get the football to him. There's too much. Childs is under too much pressure or whatnot. So I think it's important to get him the football.
I mean, even the Southern Cal game, after Southern Cal went up 3-0, State went right back down the field and scored right out of the chute, 7-3, Michigan State.
Circling back to what Owen said, Tim, because I've heard you talk about it here in the hallways of the Lansing Sports Network, and I'm sure it's the same over at WILX, Owen. Tim was talking about Nick Marsh and mentioned that he's a good receiver, but he's got to open it up a little bit with Nick Marsh, because Nick Marsh is good for 7 yards at a time. We haven't seen the explosiveness.
He caught 7 passes, but they were for 77 yards.
Yeah.
My guess is Indiana's more than happy to let him do that today if that's what the option would be. My guess is Indiana's going to keep an eye on number 6, right, Owen?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the problem right now, is that they're not like I was talking about. There's multiple plays I will watch him, and he'll be wide open, and they can't get him the football because Childs is quickly under pressure, and then he's going to check it down and not go to Marsh. Like Marsh last game was wide open a couple of times, and he's running against the wind out there. He needs to get the football. They need to find ways of getting creative, of getting him the football downfield, because he can do that as well as Amari Kelly. I think getting him the football as well is very important. We saw in the USC game in the late, I guess, when they were trying to cover and come back, Amari Kelly had that long touchdown catch from Aiden Childs. Try to do that more.
Yeah.
Utilize the speed and go downfield more.
Is there a reason why he's not seeing the field as well as he seems like he's capable?
I don't love to put all the blame on the quarterback. I think you definitely have to put some blame on the offensive line of being able to protect him. There's obviously flaws of the run game as well. If you can get the run game going, that would be big. We saw that in the first few games with Mekhi Frazier looking really good and Brandon Tullis being a nice compliment to him. We have not seen that really since. I think getting the run game to complement the pass could really set up Childs for success when you're not expecting him to throw the football on every play.
And, Tim, you've been saying that since the beginning of the year. Set the tone with the running game.
Well, to Owen's point about the offensive line, Indiana's defensive front is they sacked Dante Moore of Oregon 6 times last week. They can get to the quarterback. Owen might think that Oregon's offensive line is better than Michigan State's offensive line, and they are, whoever the quarterback is for Michigan State, they are going after him today. And number 8 in the middle, the line, that guy, I mean, last year he just roamed in the State's backfield, but they sacked the Oregon quarterback 6 times.
Yikes.
So, right, Owen?
No, absolutely. I think, like you said, this is a really, really good all-around team that is not going to make a lot of mistakes. I think you have to keep the mistakes to a minimum. And I'm not just talking about turnovers on third down, converting on third down. And when you do go for it on fourth down, you need to find ways to convert. On that, going back to that fourth down play that really turned the tide against UCLA, I don't think that was the original play call. It looked like Childs actually changed the play to a pitch play, and it just did not work out. You gotta go with what works for you, and it just felt like they were going away from that sort of thing. And It's important to avoid those mistakes. If you're going to win this game, you have to have a really, really all-around good performance.
Oh, and you keyed on something really good there, because Jonathan Smith was asked about that in the post-game press conference and said, people asked him about that fourth down play, and he said that was not the original play to sweep out to the right. It was supposed to be a counter in the inside, but Aiden Childs checked it off because of what he was seeing from the defense, and indeed they had to change it at the line. And I also wanted to talk about your comment about the fourth down. And our Spartan stat of the game, brought to you by Shoepan Recycling, is one that we're hoping not to see again anytime soon. Today's Spartan stat, 3 for 3 on fourth down. That wasn't Michigan State. That was UCLA's success rate against the Spartans. On the other side of the ball, MSU was 0-4 on fourth down against UCLA. UCLA composed, aggressive, converting on every fourth down they faced, while MSU couldn't get any. The efficiency displayed by UCLA, Tim, was a difference maker last Saturday, and that is your Spartan stat of the game, presented by Shoepan Recycling. As leaders in metal and plastic recycling and processing at Shoepan, their commitment to a better world goes beyond recycling. Fourth down efficiency has got to be part of it, too. And I feel they're going to have plenty of fourth downs to convert.
Well, Tom Emmerich of Shoepan, who's a big Spartan, he's going to tell you he wants better fourth down efficiency if it gets to that.
Yeah.
I forgot that was what their numbers were. I mean, the first quarter play gets all of it, and that was just inches, just inches short. But the other thing, Owen, I think Michigan State's got to learn how to play over adversity too, so that when adversity hits, you don't see 22 guys with their dauber down, and they're kind of, because you think that environment, that was at home. Yeah. The environment they're getting today is going to be as rough an environment as they're going to see. This place in Bloomington is going to be so lightning charged for this game, and Michigan State just happens to be in the way because let's just go up and down the field like they've done all year long. I don't know if you saw the Illinois game, and if you can argue that Illinois might be a better team than Michigan State, I was stunned at how Indiana just handled them as easily as they did, and that was before they got these 2 road wins in Indiana and at Iowa and Oregon last week. Right, Owen?
No, absolutely. I think, to your point, Curt Cignetti obviously just got the big extension, got the big deal done. I think it's important, and I like what his message is. No matter who they're playing, it's the same mindset for Indiana. They want to control the game from the very start, and they're not going to let off the gas pedal. I think it's like I keep saying, it's important to play mistake-free football because that program that Curt Cignetti has built, Brian Lindgren earlier in the week and Joe Rossi were both asked about just the program that Cignetti has built. And Rossi had a really, really good soundbite that impressed me of him talking about it's not just about schematics, it's what they're doing inside the football building. And it's the culture that they built and the coordinators they've kept around Cignetti for a long time. I mean, that staff that he has in Indiana has been with him from the very beginning. And it's just their mindset's a little bit different. Even if they make a mistake, they're going to bounce back. Like when Mendoza when he had the interception against Oregon, and it felt like the Ducks might take back the game, it was Indiana's defense stepping up, having his back. I think that's important that we see that from Michigan State, of being more encouraging on the sideline, a better mentality, a better attitude throughout the entire just length of the football game. Because if they can do that, I just feel like they could win more games. But sometimes when you're walking past their bench, it's just dead silent. You need more leadership. I think that's the big thing. They have good leaders, but it's time that they step up and get their guys with their heads up. And even if you make a mistake, you can bounce back and make a big play on your next drive. So
and does that start with Jonathan Smith?
In ways, yeah, I do think so, because I think it's important to show as a head coach that you can command a team, be a leader, even when your captains are, even when your captains make a mistake, like Aiden Childs. Let's say he just threw an interception. I think it's important that Jonathan Smith, he's a former quarterback, go encourage your quarterback. Say, hey, we still got this. You can bounce back. You've been in these situations now. He has a lot more experience than when he originally came here. I think it's important just to continue to stress the same mindset and mentality and establish a culture here at Michigan State. No matter what happens the rest of the season, if Jonathan Smith is still going to be here, establish a culture of you're not going to give up and you're going to continue to fight throughout the entire game.
Thank you, Owen. Owen Oszust from WILX. Safe travels, my friend.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Talk to you soon.
Boy, I'll tell you, he's very insightful. Good young man.
He's on with us once a week in the studio, and I let him and Brock, just kind of go at it every now and then. But the thing today that's intriguing about this game is like this Curt Cignetti thinks, if you heard him all week long, he wants his team to think today they're playing the 85 Bears because he doesn't want – he's like Saban in that way. I know what we just did. Forget it. This is what's ahead. It's an enormous downer if Indiana, from their standpoint, would lose this game today. They're a 4-touchdown favorite at home today. And for what their goals are, they're number 3 in the nation right now. They have a kid that could win the Heisman Trophy. How many times do you think Indiana puts up football players that are contenders for the Heisman Trophy? Because this Fernando Mendoza, I don't know if you've seen him, the quarterback. Yeah. Of course, they got him out of the portal. And I thought early in the year, well, he hadn't, they played 3 cream puffs and he looked great. Well, play somebody. Well, since then, they only beat Illinois, who was ranked number 9 at the time, by 53 points. And they could have had more, frankly. Then he goes on the road and ends Oregon's 18-game and beating Iowa at Iowa the way they did. Because I'm telling you, Iowa at home in a big game like that defensively, they're difficult. And Indiana did what they had to do to win the game.
Well, we're going to get you rolling with Weather Report in just a few. Brought to you by Feldman Chevrolet. You're listening to the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV, live on Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and 1240 WJIM, Lansing's Big Talker.
Back now, it's the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV in the remote broadcast booth, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Here's Tim Staudt, Steve Goff, and Alexandra Jai Wook.
Welcome back to the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV. I'm Steve Goff, along with the Dean of Sports, Tim Staudt, on the air with you till 2 from the warm and friendly Lansing Sports Network studios, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Boy, we could use Tico and Todd in the backfield today and all the help we can get. Joining us today on the phone, though, is a guy coming to our rescue, a man who's well-versed on all things sports, and he's got to be. He's another of Tim's cohorts from WILX and a broadcast legend in his own right. It's Fred Heumann. Hey, Fred.
How we doing, guys?
We're doing great. How you doing, sir?
I'm good.
Well, first off, what were your immediate thoughts at the final whistle last Saturday?
Well, I thought it was one of the worst home losses in Michigan State in recent years, to be honest with you. And I don't want to hear too much about how UCLA rose to the occasion and won the week before. Yeah, they're a re-energized team, but a team that's coming in here with 4 losses, you're playing them on homecoming in your home field. You got to put up a better showing than that. I don't know that there's any 2 ways to cut it. This is not the 1967 UCLA Bruins in here. This is the 2025 UCLA Bruins, and I thought it was an embarrassing performance for Michigan State, to be honest with you, and I think it's going to be tough to recover from. And whenever they write the book on this season or on this era, I think that loss is going to stand out. To be honest with you, I think it's going to be that meaningful. I just think that you got to have your team ready to play for a game like that on homecoming, a game that you got to win for what's going on in your season and to stop the bleeding. And they didn't stop the bleeding. They put a poker in it. So it was I don't know how else to say it. It was a bad performance.
Tim?
Well, who's going to disagree?
Yeah.
Who's going to disagree? We did, Brock will tell you, we did our You Pick 'em show yesterday, okay? And of the 30 entries, 3 picked Michigan State just to kind of be a novelty. But we had 7 people, all Spartans, who picked Indiana today to score more than 60 points.
Wow.
So, now had Michigan State beat UCLA, my sense is most of them would have picked Indiana today, but it would have been a heck of a lot closer. But to his point, who's going to argue with anything that he just said? I The ardent Michigan State fans, and I'm talking about hardcore ardent fans, and I heard my wife on the phone with a couple of her friends, and she had them on speakerphone. Oh, it was awful. It's just terrible. I mean, it's just awful. And that, to Fred's point, when this season is all said and done, if it doesn't finish on a positive note, the UCLA game, more than the other two, Southern Cal and Nebraska, or even Michigan perhaps, is where I think it changed a lot of people's attitudes about where the program's headed.
Fred Heumann joining us on the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV. Fred, I'd like to get your thoughts on how you think some of the former coaches here at Michigan State would handle this current Spartan situation, whether it be Perlis, Saban, D'Antonio, or anyone else you can remember in your time here. What do you think their approach would be?
Well, they would be all about accountability, I think, and I'm not saying Jonathan Smith is not about that, but, it's just to elaborate on Tim's point, it's Saturday afternoon. We're all anticipating a great college football day. We're looking forward to how our teams do. And I actually heard, Tim's, you pick them yesterday, some of those predictions, 61-3, 48-3, 55-6. And my point is, you're thinking on a Saturday afternoon, I wonder if my team, has a chance to win today or even have a good showing. And what that loss did to deflate what they call Spartan Nation is so impactful that people are almost embarrassed to watch them go out and play Indiana today. I don't think I'm overstating that. I get that from my Spartan friends and family in Detroit and around here, and the people I know. I've gotten this all week. They don't think that there's any hope. Now, I got a feeling, and we'll probably get to this, I got a feeling we all think these weeks that all run together and one week is the same as the other. I know everyone thinks Michigan State's going to get trounced today, and they may well. I got a feeling they may play a lot better and show themselves better than they did a week ago at UCLA or at home to UCLA, maybe partially because they stunk up the joint. So they may give a more competitive effort today than any of us expect. But the point is, nobody thinks they can win. And that is, that equals the all-time low errors of recent Spartan football. And I'm thinking, and I'm saying this, and I'm trying to catch myself to not overreact. And I'm thinking, we're only talking about 1 week. I mean, the other losses, the Nebraska and USC, were kind of expected. I think everything played out, but that 1 week, that one game was so decisive and so telling. And to Tim's point, I think that is going to go down as, if this ends for Jonathan Smith either soon or after the season, I think that game is going to be the game that got him. I really think it's been that impactful. So there's just not a lot of hope today going to Indiana for your Spartan team. And how many times have we said that in 50 years? Not very often.
No, here's the thing. Earlier this week during Staudt on Sports, Tim Staudt was talking about the fact that he predicted from the beginning of the season that MSU would be 3-3 by this point in the season. So here we are. Yeah. We're 3-3. So Does Michigan State's season start over today? Does it have to start over today, and you just have to look forward and try to win another 3 games?
Well, if the 3 losses would have been to Western Michigan, Boston College, and Youngstown State, and then beat Southern Cal, Nebraska, and UCLA, I'd say it's different.
Oh, of course.
Because then they'd be 3-0 in the Big Ten, and they'd be going forward. I mean, the part of the problem is like Fred said, UCLA, I mean, say what you want. I mean, they had their Waterloo moment against Penn State. And I was like everybody else. I thought UCLA's coming in here 3 time zones away. It's 9 o'clock in the morning for them. Mm-hmm. They're all giddy all week because everybody's patted them on the back for their big win of the year with an interim coaching staff. And then the game started exactly the way it kind of was going to go. State goes right down the field and scores.
Yeah.
And then after that, I mean, it's like that they all change uniforms. And yet, I do think UCLA is better than 2-4. Now, they host Maryland today, which you would say, now, is that a winnable game for UCLA? I would say it's winnable. Now, watch them go out and get beat by Maryland.
By 50.
Or something like
And, guys, I agree with that, but I think the other thing in the mix here is you look at State's losses cumulatively or even look at their wins, I guess I should say. They beat Youngstown State, not even Division I. They beat a average to below average Western Michigan team. And we all thought, myself included at the time, that Saturday night game, that win over Boston College, was a pretty big win. Not a great win, but a pretty big win. Well, now we're looking at a Boston College team that has a chance to go 2-9. So now those are your 3 wins. And I think, frankly, that adds to this mix. You're not looking at anyone Michigan State has beaten that's very formidable. So how do you have a lot of hope going against third-ranked Indiana today? I mean, I really don't. I call Tim Captain Negative. I sound like Captain Negative. I'm trying not to be negative, but the reality is they haven't beaten anyone formidable yet. And now they got Indiana and Michigan. And you know, let's just say the bridge is laying a little low this week.
How do you recover from it, Fred?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that you do. I mean, I can tell you how the coach will say they're going to recover, and I can tell you, to your previous question, how the past coaches are going to say we're going to recover. And Jonathan Smith did point out that they had great Sunday meetings. They had a lot of accountability in the room. They all took responsibility, coaches included, for how we got here. But that's just talk. That's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday talk. You got to go out and show it on the field. And as I said, I got a feeling, just a sneaky feeling, that State's going to play a little better today and hang in there more than a lot of people think, because everyone overreacts to the week before. And I am a little too. But that loss last week at home to UCLA was alarming. And again, even if you lost the game, 37-30 or 28-27 or something like that, I mean, they got annihilated on their home field. That is, I'm trying to answer your question, and the answer is I don't know. I'm not a coach. I'm sure that's the challenge for Jonathan Smith and his staff. I don't know how you recover from that. I guess that's why we play the games, and we're going to find out today.
Do you think people are being too impatient with this team?
Well, I think impatience, Tom Izzo talked about this at his press conference this week for basketball, and football came up. I think impatience is the way of the world now. That's the price you pay for this big-time money, the portal, the NIL, the big-time investments, the donors giving money. I mean, Tim knows donors better than I do. Talk to any donor and say how they feel about this. I mean, they're way more impatient than even the average fan, because they're making an investment in their team. That's a little different. And, yeah, they don't like this. They don't like the direction it's going, and if they don't see any signs of change, they're going to be asking to contribute to a buyout. I don't think there's any question about that. It's a matter of not if, but when, if this doesn't straighten out real quick, and I mean real quick.
Tim, what say you?
I mean, he's preaching to the choir. I mean, there's nothing I disagree with. He and I don't agree that the sky's blue on a clear day most of the time, but how can you argue? I mean, how can you argue with any of that? Look, they've had 3 straight losing seasons. That, to me, the players changed, but the fan base doesn't, okay? So they've gone through 3 straight losing seasons of this, all right? They've gotten 3 straight beats by Michigan. Michigan's beaten them 3 in a row. They watched Michigan win a national title. They don't like the way they did it, but they did it, okay? Yeah. So around here, a lot of these people kind of got a good feeling off most of the D'Antonio years, right? So that can be done here because it's been done before. When I look at this, I think it's very complex. I don't think it's just a simple thing to fix one way or the other. I mean, I haven't written this season off yet of the last 6 games other than today, because I'm not sure there aren't flaws in the other 5 that they're going to play. I think they've got just as good a chance to beat Penn State and Michigan at home as they do at Iowa in Week 11. That doesn't mean I think they're going to beat Penn State and Michigan, but those 2 coming in here have got issues of their own, and Michigan could have an enormous. I mean, Michigan's going to be under huge pressure to win in here next week because everybody in the world thinks State's terrible, all right? So, gosh, Michigan fans, they're not going to lose to State. State's awful. They'll think that way. But I think a lot of the other thing I've thought about this all week, after the UCLA game and the Nebraska game and the Southern Cal game, Jonathan Smith's a genuine guy, but he's not a guy that's going to fiery emotionally show his temper and disgust publicly. And I think after those losses, especially last week, he's pretty base in the way he speaks. His tenor is kind of the same one way or the other, if that makes any sense.
It does.
When people hear him speak, they want to hear him speak that he's in fury. I mean, I think of Nick Saban's temper, even Perlis's temper, okay? Even D'Antonio's temper. I mean, you could tell it really bothered them, and you could identify that. I just think Jonathan Smith's personality is to be as even-keeled as possible, not hit the panic button, but I'm not sure the fan base here identifies with that completely. If Fred agrees with that.
Yeah, I agree. And just to elaborate on that, and that's right, it's not his personality. The zebra has his stripes, and you can't change what you are. And I don't think anyone wants him to be phony and start throwing headsets to show that he cares. I think he cares. But I think we're also coming off a climate here in recent history. I mean, look what happened during the Mel Tucker era. Everyone got all fired up. He beat Michigan. He had Kenneth Walker. He won those 9 games. We're back. We're ahead of Michigan. And then it all fell apart, not only on the field, but with an embarrassing legacy with Tucker. So people here in particular, frankly, guys, aren't in a mood to be patient. They don't want to hear that patience. They feel shamed by the Tucker era and what he did to this school, and they don't want to wait 5 more years to turn this thing around. They want an instant fix. Instant fixes are tough in college sports, tougher than ever, but, we're addressing the point of what the fans and the donors want and what they want, and what's reality may be different things, but the people here aren't in the mood to be patient.
I think that's no question. That's a contributing factor.
100%.
Is the end of the Tucker regime embarrassed the Michigan State people?
Thanks, Fred. Fred Heumann, Uncle Fred, another WILX coworker at Tim. See you. Go green. All right, time for another break as the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show rolls along. He's the Dean. I'm Steve, and this is the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, powered by Price Right RV, live from our studios, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Back with more on Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and 1240 WJIM. Lansing's Big Talker. Next.
Back now, it's the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV in the remote broadcast booth, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Here's Tim Staudt, Steve Goff, and Alexandra Jai Wook.
Welcome back to the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, brought to you by Price Right RV on Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and 1240 WJIM. Lansing's Big Talker, live from our studios here on Pine Tree Road, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Tim Staudt, Steve Goff. Tim, today marks the 72nd meeting between Michigan State and Indiana in a series that began in 1922, won by Indiana. MSU's first victory came in 1950 in East Lansing, and then they'd go on to dominate the series pretty well over the years. Do I have that right? I have 70. I looked at 2 different sources, including the press release from MSU and Google, and I split the difference, but I've got 72.
Well, State's won 50.
Okay.
And Indiana's won 19. And most of Indiana's 19 wins are of recent vintage.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for many of the years, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, Indiana was a doormat in the Big Ten. Johnny Pont, I'll never forget him, in 1967. Indiana won the Big Ten title behind Johnny Pont. He was a coach that used to kneel down on the sidelines in his shirt and tie with a cup of coffee the entire game. He'd sit there with a cup of coffee kneeling on the sideline. And they came into Michigan State late that season. I was not working. I was a student working in sports information. And Indiana's Harry Butch Gonzo was their quarterback. John Eisenbarger, their running back. They hooked up late and scored and kicked the extra point, beat State 14-13 to go to the 68 Rose Bowl game. And that year in school, the Michigan State News had a prediction contest. It was national to predict games. I hit every one of them on the nose and won a trip for 2 to the 68 Rose Bowl game at the Ambassador Hotel, where Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated 6 months later.
Oh.
We were out there for 4 days, so I took my brother. And we went out there for 4 days, and Indiana played O.J. Simpson and the Southern Cal Trojans and actually hung in there to lose 14-3.
Wow.
So that's one Indiana moment that I remember, but they beat Michigan State and East Lansing to get to the Rose Bowl, but they never did very much after that and had done almost nothing prior to that. They had one recruiting class, and they just kind of worked their way through that they made it to the Rose Bowl game that year. But as you know, look at the thing. Michigan State's leading in the series 50-19.
Oh. Brock, you've got the stats at your fingertips somewhere. Is Indiana indeed the losingest program in NCAA history?
I don't know about that, but they're amongst them. I mean, they have not won a Big Ten championship since, my goodness, it was what, 1967?
Well, it was 67 that they made it to the Rose Bowl, where I think they had lost one game during the year.
It was a three-way tie with Purdue and somebody else.
Yeah,
Wow.
so they, in those days, the one that had gone to the Rose Bowl the farthest back, which for them was never,
Okay.
they qualified to go to the Rose Bowl.
Oh, the no repeat rule.
The no
that they used to
repeat. Well,
have.
yeah. Well, I mean, if it's a tie, the breaker is who went, because there were no bowls in those days.
Yeah.
There were 4 or 5 bowls again. There were hardly any bowl games then. It's when the bowl system had something of merit. Anyway, we were out there for 4 days, stayed at the all expenses paid, and the insurance company, the national company that sponsored it, had other contests. So we were amongst about 40 people. We had good seats.
Yeah.
We were.
Look at
I
you.
mean, we were treated like Brock. He'll laugh, but it was a prediction of about 30 games. I hit them all. I didn't even know I won.
And it still continues to this day.
And I
remember that
I
in
didn't
your
even
book, Tim.
yeah, and
Remember
I
that in
put
your
it in the
book.
book. I didn't even know that I had won till this big satchel comes by FedEx that you won, and here's all the and you could take someone. So I took my brother, who originally went to Indiana University. He eventually dropped out of Indiana University. I can remember so many weekends going down. He was a year younger than I was. He since has passed away, but he was down there. He was an Indiana University student. And my dad, I was born in Bloomington.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your background with Indiana.
Well,
What's your connection?
early in their marriage, he was in the School of Business at Indiana University, and then I don't know, it was 4 or 5, whatever it was, and he went to MIT in Boston, and then he came to Michigan State in '55 to be the head of the marketing department till '69, and then he went to General Motors. But so when I met Bobby Knight the first time on the air, where I made some points with him, and I took a gamble. I challenged him when I said, I'll bet I know a little bit more about Bloomington than you do. And that did get his attention.
I bet it did.
How so? And I said, do you remember Hoosier Courts? They were Quonset huts then, because that's where we lived.
Yeah.
And I said, my dad taught there. I was born there. And frankly, he kind of warmed up to that from that time moving forward. So Indiana, my boss at Channel 10, Debbie Petersmark, the vice president general manager, she's an Indiana University grad. So there's some mid-Michigan ties to Indiana University. Have you ever been there?
I've been down there, yeah.
Okay, so and Bloomington has grown dramatically. I had done about 8 or 9 Big Ten TV basketball games there, but none recently. So we were on spring break a couple of years ago, and we came up through French Lick, and I said, let's stop in Bloomington. I couldn't believe how much that place has grown and how much their athletic facilities have dramatically been upgraded since I had been there for the last basketball telecast some 10 years earlier.
I don't know if they're going to have any money left over to do any improvements in the future with all the money they're paying Signetti now.
Well, they've got donors like Mark Cuban who got right on the bandwagon. Winning is an amazing – it's like Mark Hollis, Michigan State's former AD, said, the greatest sports marketing is winning. Mm-hmm. You can come up with all the different ideas you want to sell tickets and get people enthused. Winning in sports is what builds the bandwagon.
Well, there's a lot of Michigan State sports right now that are doing well. I mean, you look to the hockey team, you look to the Michigan State women's volleyball team. Both the soccer teams are doing great. And I realize those are non-traditional, non-revenue sports, but they've got to play a role in there somewhere. And I know Jay Batt does a great job of giving them some time.
Well, Signetti's argument when he first met the Indiana University crowd at the basketball game at halftime one night was, this school wins virtually in every sport, but football. Will win in football.
That's nice.
I mean, I think he felt that, and they've upgraded that stadium. I mean, they put suites in the end zones. The end zones used to be just grass hills because they never had the demand for tickets. They were a lot like Northwestern. A lot of their crowds would be 50% fans from the visiting team because you could get tickets easily. Mm-hmm. You always had a good seat, and you're going to win the game. Well, obviously now, when you see what that looks like this afternoon, I think it's going to be overcast and cloudy, and there might even be some rain late in the day, so says Andy Provenzano from Channel 10. That said, that place is going to be absolutely rocking because they've been on the road for a couple of weeks, and they won at Indiana, and they won at Oregon, and so last week everybody thought, well, the angle last week is they'll lose at Oregon, but they can still make the playoff. Well, now because they won at Oregon, they're ranked number 3 in the nation, and that you would think that they're on a showdown in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game with, say, Ohio State. And if that happens, how many fans in Indianapolis do you think will drive 1 hour from Bloomington and fill that place with cream and crimson, as it said?
Guarantee you there's going to be a sea of red if that's
Oh.
Indiana against Ohio State.
Yep.
All right, it's the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show presented by Price Right RV. So, Tim, again, taking back a little bit, how long did you spend in Indiana?
I was just a little kid. I mean, I was 3, 4, 5 years old. But I mean, he didn't stay there. They've been married. This was in the late 40s, early 50s, and then he went, as I say, to MIT in Boston. And I remember, I think I was in kindergarten or first grade by the time we moved here, because he took the job at Michigan State. And but I remember that, when they first got married, they were both from Akron, Ohio, and he took the job at Indiana University, and they liked it there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful place.
It is.
I claim, though, without the transfer portal, I don't think all this would have occurred for not only Indiana but Vanderbilt today, who's playing LSU, because when they had to just get high school football players, Indiana was always, they're
Dead
going
last.
after Ohio State's guys and Notre Dame's guys and Purdue's guys in Illinois. I mean, it was just they couldn't get enough guys. Well, now with the portal, especially if you've got financial resources. But what helped him tremendously, Signetti, last year, when he left James Madison, he had a very good team. And he got a lot of those guys to come with him. So he builds an 11-2 team, which is a bandwagon effect. So now he says, you come to Indiana, we win. You might as well keep going as part, because he's got new players on this. Well, he's got a new quarterback.
Yep.
But the quarterback he gets out of the portal might win the Heisman Trophy. So you talk about an amazing success story. Indiana University football clearly is that.
Talk to me about the background on the old brass spittoon.
Brock, you got that. Brock knows more about that. It goes back to 1950, and it's from a Michigan State student.
Yeah, the original deal was it's believed to be almost 200 years old.
Wow.
Going back to the 1830s, right about when the state of Michigan became a state. It is believed to be originally found at an early trading post, which, according to an Allentown, Pennsylvania newspaper article from about 10 years ago, which I think was written by an Indiana grad, which is why he wrote the article, that it was around a trading post near where Frandor is now,
Oh, yeah.
right on the border of Lansing and East Lansing. And it was found in an antique shop in Lansing by a Michigan State student, either a junior or a senior, bought it for $25.
Wow.
And Michigan State had been struggling, apparently, at this time in 1950, so they were getting ready to play Indiana. So they got with the student council, for lack of a better term, of Indiana, and decided, hey, we should make this a trophy game. Whoever wins this game gets this old brass spittoon, which dates back to the 1830s or so, apparently.
I don't think I'd have been wanting to be a part of the carbon dating of that thing, but
You
yes.
know I love trophy games.
That's crazy. Have you seen it in person, Brock?
One time.
Wow.
Yeah, one time whenever Michigan State has it, it is displayed in the Scandalaris Football Center.
Well, that's where it is, but they haven't had it because Brock, Tom
no,
Allen.
it's in Bloomington
I
right
mean,
now.
the last two games in East Lansing, Indiana has won. Tom Allen's double overtime. That was another incredible state loss. That double overtime game, Brock. Here a couple. That's when State led 30-14 in the third quarter, and then Indiana ran the kickback for a touchdown.
Oh.
Yeah, I
The
remember.
kickback for a touchdown. They went over double overtime, and Indiana pulled. I remember the Indiana coach, Tom Allen, at the time. He's just up. You'd have thought he'd have won the Super Bowl watching, because he's trying to save his job, which he didn't do, but he won that game. And then, of course, last year, and then they played in Indiana, and then they come here. They played Indiana every year when it was the leaders and legends, when they had them divided into divisions, and Indiana and Michigan State were in the same division. And Indiana and schools like that, Purdue, Northwestern, they didn't like those divisions because they had to play the rough teams every single year. I mean, Michigan State didn't want it because we don't want to play Ohio State and Penn State every single year, let alone Michigan, which we have to do. So now with 18, it's still amazing to me that it's 1 through 18, and the top two are going to go to Indianapolis for the Big Ten title.
Well, it's going to take a lot to get that spittoon back where it belongs, and whatever road is ahead, it's not going to come easy. But Coors Light makes it easy, and that brings us to our Coors Light making it look easy play of the game. This one courtesy of the MSU offense last week.
Second down and goal now for the Spartans at the UCLA 5. Marsh is wide left. Omari Kelly set to the right. Now Kelly starts in motion left. Milivojevic throws to Marsh on a crossing pattern. He'll grab it and get inside the right pylon. Touchdown, MSU.
The combination of Childs to Marsh often makes for some really fun highlights. This time, though, it was backup quarterback Alessio Milivojevic tossing a bullet to Marsh for the TD. I tell you what, he may be a big part of the offense today, Tim.
I would be surprised if both of them don't play, not necessarily because one's hot and one's cold. I mean, if they're playing from behind, I think in part today, Michigan State's got to look, let's see what we can do today. But remember now, we got Michigan next week, and that can be a season maker. Mm-hmm. I mean, for whatever happens in these last 6 games, if you can only win one, they want to win 6, but if you can only win one of them, the number one priority is to beat Michigan next week.
Always.
So are you going to get out of Indiana and lose, but we kind of gain something one way or the other and getting better? Or are we going to get beat up and lose players and all that? I mean, how much of that's in the background of their mind? I think one thing that hurt Jonathan Smith last year when Michigan State played Michigan and lost, I think a lot of the Michigan State fan base heard him talk about that being just another game, and here they don't think that way. And D'Antonio always made it an enormous deal when the Michigan game came that, Michigan's the big deal for us. For Michigan, it's Ohio State, providing they beat Michigan State. I mean, if you think – we're talking today a completely different dynamic. Next week's tailgate show, that's a big game for Michigan too. Mm-hmm. Heaven forbid Michigan should lose to Washington today and then lose to Michigan State or beat Washington. No matter what Michigan does, losing to Michigan State will not set well with the Michigan fan base if that happens next Saturday.
And that is our Coors Light, making it look easy. Play of the game. Coors Light presents to chill or not to chill. Choose chill. Choose Coors Light for the party. This is the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV on Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and 1240 AM WJIM, Lansing's Big Talker. He's Tim and I'm Steve, and we're glad you're here with us today. Kickoff at 3:30. We're here till 2. And we'll be back to kick off hour number 2 of the show from the Lansing Sports Network mobile studios, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. But first, for your listening pleasure, Mr. Tim Staudt and the Tim Staudt Players.
Indiana, we're all for you. We will fight for the cream and crimson, for the glory of old IU. Never daunted, we will not falter. Ever faithful, we're tried and true. Indiana, our Indiana. Indiana, we're all for you. Do I get paid for that, by the way, to embarrass yourself like that? I mean, do I get paid for any of that in any way, shape, or form? I didn't sing it during the show this week because I thought there must be we got enough amateur stuff going on during the week.
Back now, it's the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV in the remote broadcast booth, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Here's Tim Staudt, Steve Goff, and Alexandra Jai Wook.
Welcome back to the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV. I'm Steve Goff, along with the host of Staudt on Sports, heard daily from 10 to 1 on our sister station on the Lansing Sports Network. The Game, 7:30 a.m. It's Mr. Tim Staudt. We're on the air with you till 2 from the Lansing Sports Network studios, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. One thing that is undeniable, Tim, is the beauty of the campus of Michigan State University. Regardless of the X's and O's on the field, MSU has one of the best campuses around. And if folks are coming to visit, or if they've got family coming to do so, there's a wonderful place to stay right on the edge of campus and all that MSU has to offer, and that's AC Hotels in Lansing.
Not only that, you can park there and then walk to the games, whether it's basketball, hockey, football, and that. Michigan State athletes stay there because you can stay there, longer than a hotel stay. And some of them, Cassius Winston has stayed there at times when he came back in the summertime. Yeah. A number of Michigan State coaches take recruits there for dinner. A number of recruits stay there because it's convenient in a variety of ways. Frandor's across the street. Michigan State's right around the corner.
Yeah, love it. And, of course, as you mentioned, they do have a great place to eat. If you wanted some elegant, fine dining out and about, AC Hotel's sister property, Toscana Restaurant. Tim, I know you're a big fan of Toscana. What makes that special to you?
I think the cuisine's terrific. The ambiance there is good. If you want to watch the televisions there, if you want to sit out on the patio, And there's a variety of different meals. There's the exquisite meals and that. I know state government people have been seen there. The governor's been seen there. Coaches have been seen there. If you want to have a little get-together with your family in a private room, you can do that. They open later in the afternoon, and the menu changes a great deal. When I was there, frankly, it's not the steak that caught my fancy, but the spaghetti.
No.
You say, well, it's just spaghetti, but the way they made it, I said, I got to get that again. So, I mean, look, it's people enjoy Toscana where it is, when it is. You can enjoy later evenings there, and the bar drinks are great as well. It's brand new for the most part, right? It's one of the newer hot places in town. And as I say, Michigan State's coaches use their facilities for hosting bigwigs constantly.
Love it. Toscana Restaurant, a part of the AC Hotels in our Small Business Spotlight this week on the Spartan Tailgate Show. Again, AC Hotels, located right next to Frandor, right on the outer outskirts there of the campus. And yeah, like Tim said, walking distance to all the great activities in the most beautiful campus in the nation, Michigan State University there in East Lansing. All right, Tim, switching gears on the Spartan Sports Tailgate Show presented by Price Right RV. You were talking earlier this week on Staudt on Sports about your friend George Perlis, and you've got some memories of one of the all-time greats as it pertains to Indiana.
Well, in 1987, which is such a memorable Michigan State football year in so many different ways, George was in George coached the Spartans from 83 to 94. So in the middle of that run, Michigan State had not been to the Rose Bowl since 1966. And in those days, the Rose Bowl was frankly a bigger deal nationally at the end of the year than it is today when it's just part of the playoff. In those days, I mean, you're playing the Pac-12 champ, the Big Ten champ. There's no conference championship game. And the last home game was the next to the last game of the year with Indiana here in East Lansing in 87. And the winner was going to clinch a Rose Bowl berth. State still had to play a game at Wisconsin, but if it lost, it still was going to the Rose Bowl. That August of 87, Duffy Doherty had passed away, and they wanted to do a memorial service of some type for him, but they didn't know exactly during the season how this was going to work out. And ironically enough, the day of that 3 o'clock game, at either 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, George talks about it here in just a moment, there was a memorial service at the St. John's Student Center. Duffy was an ardent Roman Catholic. George was too. And they had, and I can't believe that, and I was there, and the dignitaries there and from the college football world were amazing. And here are the coaches there, and this is the day of the game. Now, you're going to hear George talk about this. Our good friend who contributes to Staudt on Sports greatly. I've known Mike Pearson for years and years and years. He at one time was the sports information director at Illinois and also at Michigan State. He's retired now, and he lives in Southern Ohio. Through the years, he had his little tape recorder, and he probably did up to 400 interviews, not knowing how he was ever going to use them, with Michigan State personalities dating to some of them back in the 19-teens.
Wow.
That we've used on the air. He sent us one interview that he did later in life with a guy that played hockey at Michigan State on the Red Cedar River.
Wow.
I mean, and
the real frozen pond.
Well, and he's been very generous sending us interviews. So earlier in the week, he texted me and he said, I've got some, because you're playing Indiana, he says, I did an interview with Perlis talking about the 1987 Indiana game and went all about it. State won the game 27-3, and there was the memory of that, to go to the Rose Bowl, to play Southern Cal, who State had beat in the first game of the year under the lights, the first night game in Michigan State history. Mm-hmm. And they beat Southern Cal in a close game to begin the year, and ironically, they ended the year beating them 2017 in the Rose Bowl. But after the Indiana game, George's good friend Bill Mallory, the coach in Indiana, asked George if he could come speak to the Michigan State team in the locker room to wish him well in the Rose Bowl. So Mike Pearson, you're going to hear him talk to George about the 1987 Indiana game, sending the Spartans to the Rose Bowl, and attached to the clip is Bill Mallory talking to the Michigan State team in the Spartan locker room.
Game 10 is the Indiana game. We win 27-3. Big Ten titles on the line. Indiana's playing real well, but we just totally shut them down with defense and a great performance by Lorenzo.
Well, that's probably the finest day that I can remember, not only for the game. We started the day off with a service. The game was moved back to a 3 o'clock game. It was a prime time, 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon at Spartan Stadium. And we had a noon services, or morning services, for Duffy Doherty over at the Student Center, St. John's. And Francie Doherty and her children, Danny and Dree, were in. And Dree had her husband and 2 children. And it was a type of service that all the ex-players, coaches, people that were associated with Duffy were invited in to. And we all met in the social room before the services. And then the most important person living at that time, who I knew was very ill, was there, and Raleigh Dotch. And he came in to pay his respects to Duffy and also look at and watch basically the championship game. Because if we win this Indiana game, we win the conference, we go to the Rose Bowl. So it was a very emotional morning, paying respects to Duffy and sitting in the pew next to Raleigh Dotch, who I knew was very ill and would be in the same position Duffy was in a very short period of time. We went through those services, and a good friend of ours, Dean Look, had a chance to say a few words and did a super job. They played a couple hymns that were very appropriate. Ave Maria to start the services off, and then to end the services, Duffy's favorite song. But it just so happened there wasn't only Duffy's favorite song, it was Raleigh Dotch's favorite song, Old Danny Boy. And I'd heard Duffy and Raleigh sing the song, Old Danny Boy, often. Everybody had a chance to pay their respects. And then it was time for pregame meal, but it still lingered in your mind that even though it was going to be a game for the championship, everything was in its right priority, that Duffy and Raleigh were a heck of a lot more important than the Big Ten championship or Rose Bowl. So we had our pregame meal and played the game. And during the game, I guess all the concentration was on the game, and we played well defensively. Our offensive line blocked exceptionally well, and Lorenzo ran as well as you can run, carrying the ball over 50 times, coming close to breaking a rushing attempts record. Only thing that stopped that was the time on the scoreboard. And then after the game, for some reason, I can still visualize and remember being interviewed by the network. And for some reason, I looked up in the sky and knew that Duffy was happy and watching. And I guess the best thing we did in that whole weekend, before and after the game, is remind ourselves of Duffy Doherty and how important he was, and football was just a game. So very, very mysterious things happen. You win your first Big Ten championship in quite a few years. You have a chance to go to the Rose Bowl, and first time in 22 years, and everything is kept in its right perspective when you lose people like Duffy Doherty. Maybe the good Lord operates in mysterious ways.
The locker room team, once you got back to the locker room, it probably took you a half an hour to get back there because of the crowd, but once you got back there, you got a nice surprise after you had spoken to the team, and you got word that Bill Mallory wanted to say a few words.
I was stuck at the wrong end and had a tough time getting into the locker room because of the students, the fans were so emotional and so happy. And finally got into the locker room, and just before we spoke, Mallory, it was relayed to me that Coach Mallory wanted to talk to our team.
I can say this without getting emotional, but we both wanted this game a heck of a lot. Both of us as teams fought our ass from the bottom up. By God, I commend you, and we have a lot of respect for you. You're a damn fine football team. And congratulations on winning the title. I'm just going to say this. By God, go out to the coast and kick their ass because we're all damn tired.
And there you have it. Wow, what a great memory. Shout out to Mike Pearson for sharing that clip with us. And excellent stuff as the tradition continues here at Michigan State and involving it all together with Duffy and George and Bill Mallory as well.
You can talk about Signetti, and who knows how he's going to go down in Indiana lore. Bill Mallory arguably was probably Indiana's most, he got fired eventually, but he coached there 13 years. But, Indiana football then is just simply not what it is today.
Yeah.
What you're going to see, it just has never been like that. But Mallory was there 13 years, and he and George were very close friends. I remember when Mallory got fired, George was furious about that. That Indiana, like he said, they're never going to get another coach like Bill Mallory. Well, maybe now they've got a $92 million coach they just signed in Curt Signetti, who, so it's been a year and a half for Indiana. But where the popularity of they are now compared to back through all the years. And yet Mallory had him one game from the Rose Bowl. If the game had been played in Bloomington that day, maybe it'd have been different. But it was a dominant Michigan State game. And I remember now, George never threw the ball. So a 27-3 win with George would be like a guy that throws the ball 55-10. So that's the memory.
Time for another break as the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show rolls along. He's Tim Staudt. I'm Steve Goff, and we'll be back with more on Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and 1240 WJIM, Lansing's Big Talker, after this.
Back now, it's the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV in the remote broadcast booth, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Here's Tim Staudt, Steve Goff, and Alexandra Jai Wook.
Welcome back to the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV here on the Lansing Sports Network. Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and 1240 WJIM, Lansing's Big Talker. I'm Steve Goff, along with Tim Staudt, plus Brock Palmbush on the ones and twos behind the glass, safely away from these two yahoos, keeping us on the air. We're live in our studios, powered by Duckett Brothers. Tim, let's break down the offensive and defensive keys to the game, fueled by Ohana Asian American Sushi Restaurant and Bar. We'll start with the offense. What things does Sparty need to do to score, or at least just get some points on the board?
Well, the one challenge, in my opinion, they've had most of the year is they can't run the ball consistently, and if you can, the clock's running. And if the clock's running, the other team's offense is off the field. Mm-hmm. So if you can run the ball consistently and move it that way, that's one way to keep Indiana's high-powered attack off the field. How much Michigan State's going to be able to do that is an enormous question mark. If you have to throw it, I claim they've got to figure out a way to throw it short and let them run for first downs. Obviously, you can't turn it over. Obviously, you can't have holding penalties, personal fouls, encroachment, all that stuff. I mean, you got to have a lot of things go your way, and you probably need Indiana to make some mistakes along the way as well to help you in that regard. But I think they can't be throwing it around 45 times, because if they do, they're probably playing from behind in the first place. But it stops the clock and lets the other team's offense, which is so high-powered, get on the field. Somehow, some way. And even if Aiden Childs plays today, I don't know how much they want to run him. He, to me, is their best running threat, even if it's a broken play. But when they do run and get first downs in that, which they did occasionally against Nebraska, the clock's running, shortens the game, and keeps the other team's offense off the field. I think that's an enormous question mark, but to be perfectly honest with you, I think that's what's got to happen for them to have success, is to keep the other team off the field with a clock running.
And you were talking earlier about how Nick Marsh hasn't really busted open for some longer passes, but in this particular case, it might play to our advantage to kind of keep it short with the 7 yards at a time mentality.
Well, I mean, he caught 7 for 77 yards against UCLA. That, to me, is what you ought to have from a running back out of the backfield.
Yeah.
If he's the wideout, you got to get him downfield for 5 big catches for 162 yards, and that has not happened yet. I mean, look, Michigan State's offensive line is going to get all at once trying to hold. Indiana loves to blitz, and they know that Michigan State struggles when there's pressure on the quarterback. I'll be curious to see if Childs plays. I'm not convinced he will or he won't because he's quote-unquote available. But if he plays, he has been successful in a lot of ways so far, eluding other teams' defensive ends. Now, Indiana has to know that this guy's very elusive, and he's made plays with his feet. How Indiana's going to contain, when he gets hurt, he's gotten hurt when they've contained him, and he runs up the middle, and then somebody body slams him, and that's when he's gone down 3 times, most notably against UCLA this last week. It wasn't getting out of contain. It was when he was in the middle, and then it's when he got hit by the lineman. Again, what's Indiana going to do to contain him if he's playing? And I'm sure Indiana's practices if he's going to play. They're not naive. I think they think he's a bigger challenge than the other quarterback because the other quarterback doesn't have the elusiveness that Childs has.
He's got the more accurate arm from the looks of things so far this year, but we'll see how that plays out as well. On the other side of the ball, what does MSU's defense need to do to try and stop the best QB in the country? What are the defensive keys to the game today?
Well, again, you're asking for something. Somehow, some way, they have to pressure the quarterback. This Mendoza is so doggone accurate. He has speed himself. He will run with it. But just when you think they're going to be throwing the ball around, those 2 running backs can make big plays. But generally speaking, can they get any kind of a pass rush on Mendoza? Because Michigan State secondary, as we've seen, especially last week, is so vulnerable to having somebody not on a receiver. And Indiana's receivers, trust me, are much better than UCLA's receivers. I do tend to agree with Fred in the notion. I do think State's going to play harder today. I think they're embarrassed. That's all I've heard all week. And I do think there's something to the fact if you do nothing else today, play your ever-loving tail off in this game. Give it everything you possibly have. If you get beat, you get beat, okay? Because you're playing a number 3 team, and they may be even better than that.
Yeah.
And you're in a difficult arena to do it. But the angle last week was, Jalen Berger said, they didn't want to play anymore in the third quarter. I think if nothing else out of pride, no matter what happens, you're playing your ever-loving tail off, which they have done at times this year. They have showed that they'll do that. There were times against Nebraska and Southern Cal, I thought, if nothing else, these guys are playing hard. And if you can get them to do that today, then you just got to live whatever's going to happen.
Your keys to the game, fueled by Ohana Asian American Sushi Restaurant and Bar. Switching gears here on the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV. Our friends at Playa Bowls are this season's proud sponsor of the drive of the game, Tim. Not many choices from the past week, but...
First one.
Yeah, but I felt the opening drive against UCLA was well executed in a great way to make use of their first possession.
First and goal at the 2-yard line. Chow Tolliver is checked in. Childs will keep it and get to the end zone. He was standing up until he was knocked down inside the goal line. Touchdown, MSU. The Spartans score first on homecoming day in East Lansing.
Yeah, 10 plays, 4 minutes, 49 seconds, 49 yards, 2-yard touchdown run from Aiden Childs. The drive of the game presented by Playa Bowls. Playa Bowls, grab your friends and dive into Playa Bowls, where the beach meets the bowl. Tim, a well-rounded drive to start the game, a touchdown run. I know you love the running game. The drive came after a 3-and-out by MSU's defense, too. That was the big key there, was they showed UCLA they would stop them, at least then, early on. And they certainly started out nicely last weekend.
Yeah, there was a hole for Childs for the touchdown. UCLA looked quasi out of sorts, out of sync, somewhat inept. The game started kind of like you thought this is the way it's going to be. The intrigue on UCLA is, man, these guys, how did they ever beat Penn State? All right? And the whole when it was 24-7 at halftime, I thought it isn't over because State's going to get the ball. Something's going to happen at halftime that wakes these guys up.
Yeah.
I keep thinking every time Izzo's teams are behind at halftime, I never think that means a thing because he'll just tear off the locker room door.
Yeah, they got to repaint the locker room.
They'll come out looking different in the second half, which oftentimes they do. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, at halftime, look, this is our homecoming crowd. I don't know what anybody said about anything. And they got, a first down on that drive, but then it petered out.
Yep.
And then they had a turnover issue. But UCLA, to its credit, kept throwing the ball, kept moving the ball offensively. And, 31-7, I thought, it looks, but 38-7, it's over. It's a blowout. How bad is this going to get? Because the last touchdown was just an excuse me touchdown because UCLA had all its backup players were in the game. It was basically a 38-7 game.
Yeah.
Look, like everybody, I just think the way that loss against that team is what's got everybody in a tizzy coming into this game today.
Time for a timeout and a weather update courtesy of Feldman Chevrolet as the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, brought to you by Price Right RV, continues live from our studios powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing here on Pine Tree Road. Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and Lansing's Big Talker 1240 WJIM. More coming up next.
Back now, it's the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV in the remote broadcast booth, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Here's Tim Staudt, Steve Goff, and Alexandra Jai Wook.
Back on the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, powered by Price Right RV from our mobile studios, presented by Duckett Brothers Distributing. I'm Steve Goff. With me is the Dean of Sports, Tim Staudt, and our friend Chris Solari from the Detroit Free Press on the line on his way to the stadium in Bloomington. Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Well, we're just getting ready for this upcoming Spartan victory in Bloomington today. What are you thinking?
I think you're pretty optimistic. I think that's probably a very gentle, nice, kind way to put it. Obviously anything can happen at any point. We've seen strange things happen throughout the course of Michigan State football history. But this is an Indiana buzzsaw that they're running into right now, probably at the wrong time where Michigan State football.
Well, I wanted to talk real quick about the Spartan health. So that brings us to the GL Wilson Heating and Cooling Spartan Injury Report. GL Wilson Heating and Cooling in Lenox, because comfort, like football, is best enjoyed when everything runs right. Now, I'm not worried about the injury report itself, Chris, but I did want to ask you your thoughts. You've seen the Spartans since camp broke and all that stuff. Health was a big concern this year. How has that affected the Spartans this year?
Well, I think depth was a big concern, more so, but health factors limit that depth, which is a tough place to be in. When you already lost Luka Vincic for the season, and you had Stanton Ramil go out for an extended time, I will see if he comes back anytime soon, but then you lose Christian Phillips in last week's game against UC. That's three of your top offensive linemen when you were basically running an 8-man rotation. So you had planned ahead on the offensive line in case of injuries. I just don't think you expected to have that much of your top depth out at this point. And obviously, the big question mark going into today's game is Aiden Childs. There was a report on Thursday that he would be available, but it was real unclear as to what exactly that means. Is Aiden Childs available to start? Is Aiden Childs available to be the number 2 option, or is he strictly a number 3 emergency option just in case? It's something that we're going to have to see how Jonathan Smith and both his coaching staff and the medical staff approach it against this Indiana defense that is one of the best in the country at sacking teams, and Michigan State is one of the worst at giving up sacks with 15 sacks already of Childs.
Tim, your thoughts on that?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, Indiana's defense sacked Dante Moore of Oregon last week 6 times. And my sense is Chris might think that Oregon's offensive line might be a little bit more talented than Michigan State's offensive line. Excuse me. And again, Indiana's going after whoever plays quarterback for State. They are going after him. Chris, who's number 8 in the middle? Every time I see number 8 in the middle for Indiana, that guy's in the offensive backfield no matter who they're playing.
I'm guessing it's Camera.
Yeah, it is.
If I'm not mistaken, that's his number. But Mikal Camera, I mean, last year he had 2.5 sacks against Michigan State. Childs got dropped 4 times. Tommy Schuster got dropped 3 times. So 7 sacks in that game a year ago in East Lansing. So you're talking about a defensive line that and Camera, really, his numbers are down this year when you look at him across the board, both in sacks and tackles for losses, because so much attention is being paid to him. He's still being disruptive, but that's allowing other guys on Indiana's team. I believe they have 22 sacks already this year.
Yeah.
And that's a big number, especially when your star isn't the one getting them. That means he's helping to cause and create them for others.
Joel Klatt of Fox, he analyzed this week that the leader midway through the regular season for the Heisman Trophy, in his opinion, is the quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. And the guy threw a pick-6 against Oregon last week that you'd think, and that tied the game up. And I was at the Newark airport watching this, thinking, well, this is the way it was going to play out. Oregon's going to figure out a way to win this thing. And after that, Indiana just went right through them. It was never a doubt. They scored twice 10 points. Yeah. Oregon couldn't get out of its own way. I mean, to Chris's point, last year I always thought Indiana was making it on offense, but their defense has been tremendous. Right, Chris?
Absolutely. And that was kind of a hidden part of last year's team, too. I mean, they were strong defensively. I mean, Kurt Cignetti runs a very across-the-board ship. And I know everybody keeps wanting to lump him in as a Nick Saban acolyte, but the reality is he comes from a family of really good coaches. I mean, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and the name Cignetti is important because his father, Frank Sr., is a college football Hall of Famer from his time at Indiana, Pennsylvania. So this is a team that is built around that Western Pennsylvania blue-collar ethos of defense first and everything else. I mean, there's a reason that Indiana's good. As good as Mendoza is, they're not winning these games at Oregon like that without the way that defense is playing.
Yeah.
What is it about his personality that makes people want to play for him, Chris?
Well, I think he's the kind of coach that you want leading your program, that you want to play for, but you absolutely detest if you're on the other side. I think there's a little smugness, a little arrogance, and quite honestly, if you're looking at it from his standpoint, his player's standpoint, or Indiana's standpoint, a heck of a lot of confidence. And that's what confidence breeds. It breeds that kind of knowledge that hey, you're going to be able to go in to Oregon and win. You're going to be able to be right there with Ohio State and Michigan and all these big teams in the Big Ten, like we saw last year when they finished second in the Big Ten. I mean, they get to the college football playoff. I mean, they are a confident, aggressive group that I think really is an embodiment of Cignetti's personality.
I mean, he's preaching to the choir. I mean, Chris, I've seen all of Indiana's games, and I mean, I kept thinking I had to blink my eyes with the Illinois game because I said, man, this is a game of the day, prime time, ninth-ranked Illinois. Indiana's, after 3 cream puff wins, they're finally going to have to play. I mean, they went through them like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah.
I mentioned Mendoza earlier, though. I'll tell you, Chris, he's the best passing quarterback I've seen this year. I don't know if he's going to win the Heisman. Nobody knew anything about him. I'd like to know exactly how Indiana got this guy in the first place out of the transfer portal because, look, he's got a great offensive line. The 2 running backs have speed, and they block in the backfield for Mendoza. The running backs can block. And the 2 wideouts look like Amon-Ra St. Brown in these games, in my opinion, unless Chris has a different angle on that.
Yeah, I mean, Mendoza has been really, really accurate. I mean, like, you look at his yards per game, it's not going to wow you, but it's the accuracy. It's the touch that he's got with the ball, and it's the ability to use those weapons to his advantage. That's how they're able to run it up. And quite honestly, that's something that Cignetti is not going to be afraid to do. Like, he you might want to call them style points. They're just points. He just wants points. And, the team that Indiana had last year, I don't think is as good as this team. Just like I don't think necessarily right now at this point after the game that Michigan State played against UCLA, it's the same team that faced Indiana last year. I think it's a little bit down, and a little bit down on its luck too, and a little bit down on its chutzpah, if you will. So it's a tough situation, especially going into a road game where you can throw out all the history of what Michigan State's done against Indiana and on the road in Bloomington. Indiana's a 5 right now. It is a whole different ball game because basketball's been down for so long. That fan base has wanted something to cling to, and boy, do they have it.
This is the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV on Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and Lansing's Big Talker 1240 WJIM. Steve Goff here. That's Tim Staudt and Chris Solari on the phone with us from the Detroit Free Press. Chris, one last thing before we go. Is there anything that Michigan State should look for today to take away as a positive?
Boy.
The dead air says it all.
Boy.
Well, listen, I do think that there is something to take away as a positive. You cannot, and I repeat, you cannot repeat the performance of last week against UCLA. And when I say that, that doesn't necessarily mean what it's going to look like on the scoreboard. That doesn't necessarily mean what it's going to look like on the stat sheet. I'm talking about effort. I'm talking about energy. This is a team that showed that in the first 2 losses of this 3-game losing streak, on the road at USC, on the road at Nebraska. Probably could have and may have should have won that game against Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a different caliber of opponent right now. But you have to show the compete level. You have to show that you're willing to take a fight to a team that you are not supposed to be in a game with. That, to me, is the biggest thing that needs to happen. And wherever the chips fall at that point, I think you kind of live with it. But if you don't show the fight, then you've got a rough patch here going into the last 5 games.
Chris Solari from the Detroit Free Press. Chris, thank you, my friend. Drive safely and go green.
All right, boys. Enjoy it today.
All right, enjoy the game this afternoon. He's there.
He's there.
I wonder how many Michigan State people
are traveling today.
Well, first of all, it used to be when Michigan State played at Indiana, a lot of people would go because you get a good seat. It's not expensive, and the visiting team tended to win. Now, I mean, on the secondary, I mean, you wait and see. That stadium, is so different when it's packed to 55,000, and they'll all be in a sea of red. And where any Michigan State people will be remains to be seen. It's just, I mean, the dynamic change. College football today, the big-time college football, it's amazing schools like Indiana and Vanderbilt, because Indiana, the Big Ten, is what Vanderbilt is now in the SEC. They got LSU today at home.
Right.
So that's another big deal. Can they show that they're a legitimate team? Last year they beat Alabama, right? Vanderbilt. In the world today, you talk about impatience, but it shows that you can go from first to worst or worst to first because of the way you can get players with this transfer portal. Purdue's got 82 new players. 82. They didn't all come from the high school ranks to do that. And frankly, at the end of this season, however it plays out for Michigan State, I wonder how many players will play at Michigan State next season on opening day who don't know they're going to be a Michigan State player yet, or any other school for that matter. Because it's the way of all these rosters change as dramatically as they can change, and that portal has made it for Indiana. They've evaluated the players right, the momentum they've built on. And frankly, I would say this. If Indiana wins today, Chris, you look at Indiana, they don't have to play Ohio State. They don't have to play Penn State. They've already beaten Oregon. I mean, it would appear to be that they've got a pretty good line to get to Indianapolis, probably to play Ohio State, not definitively if Ohio State stumbles, but you can see an Indiana-Ohio State 1-2 for Indianapolis coming up, and the loser of that game probably still going to make the national playoff.
Food for thought. Time for another break as the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show rolls along. He's Tim Staudt. I'm Steve Goff, and this is the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV. Back after this.
Back now, it's the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV in the remote broadcast booth, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. Here's Tim Staudt, Steve Goff, and Alexandra Jai Wook.
Back with you on the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV in the studios, powered by Duckett Brothers Distributing. All right, Tim, Indiana has proven themselves to be one of the top teams in the Big Ten and in the country. They got what you feel is arguably the best quarterback in the country as well. MSU is in desperate need of a win or something that shows that this team is ready to fight. And now they're a 4-touchdown underdog. What are your final thoughts, and what are you thinking as we get ready to? It's been a crazy week, Tim.
Well, the hardest part for me to analyze this game is how is Michigan State going to play? Are they going to play like they did for a while at Southern Cal and Nebraska, or are they going to play like they did against UCLA? I think they will play much harder today. I go along with the theory that they absolutely have to get off to a reasonably good start and can't get down like they did at Nebraska 14-0 right out of the chute, even though they came back and got the lead in the third quarter. I think Indiana's far tougher than Nebraska, far better than Nebraska. But State has played in adverse road conditions before. Southern Cal wasn't easy at 11 o'clock at night. Nebraska has endless sellouts, and it's a big deal there. So they should be used to that by now. I mean, I just think each one of these players is, search your soul as to, if nothing else, I'm playing as hard as I can today. That said, something in the neighborhood, like I said on our show this week, 45-10. I think Indiana could score more, and I think State could score more, but it's hard to believe that Indiana can just keep endlessly going up and down the field, the way it has. But I'll tell you one thing, Indiana through 6 games is a heck of a lot of fun team to watch if you don't care who wins, because, man, can they move the ball.
45-10. Wowie. Is there anything that you can think of that Indiana could just do where they just have a collapse?
Well, they could get injuries. They could lose their quarterback. They could lose one of those receivers. I mean, that's a danger for any team in any game at any time that has nothing to do with the caliber of the team. I mean, are they going to fumble the ball away? Will this guy throw a pick that's batted and State gets it? Are we going to have a targeting call that knocks an Indiana player out of the game? I mean, all that stuff you can never necessarily predict. And toward that end, can Michigan State ever get some breaks that you might not consider when you're analyzing a game that's going to happen that you didn't see that was going to happen?
Guys, how about forcing turnovers?
Great point, Brock. Behind the glass. Yeah, Brock makes a good point. The turnover battle. And, of course, MSU has that secret weapon in Ryan Eckley.
Well, he's a punter, not a field goal kicker. And yes, if he punts, punt it down to the very end of the field, which has been helpful in some of these games, making these guys have to go the length of the field as opposed, kick it inside the 5. But heaven knows he's probably going to get some punts today that are going to be, more often than not. Did Indiana notice how Nebraska blocked that punt, and will they take advantage of that? I mean, that's why what the intrigue of Indiana to me they're almost too good to be true. Because I still think in the other year, last year, I thought you could move the ball on them at times. State didn't do it very well. They only got 10 points, but other teams could move the ball a little bit on them. I mean, if this Mendoza's on his game today with the way they've been, ask Illinois. I mean, they could have scored 100 on Illinois. They just finally called off the Dogs. But, each game is different, and I have to believe State will be different today than it was against UCLA last week.
I would agree. I still think that they're going to score a lot of points, unfortunately, on the green and white. My prediction will be 50-17.
Okay.
Indiana. I do think that they'll, and I think part of that is because Cignetti won't let off the gas.
He'll put in backup players, but what he does he wants the backup players to be in the game like the game's in doubt.
Yes.
So you just don't want to hand it off and get the game over. So it's garbage time, as they call it. When his backup guys go in, they're going to throw the ball around because he wants them to think that if I need you when these games are on the line, you've got some experience trying to score. I mean, good for him, because most times when backups go in, you hand it off and then we'll punt it and just get the game over with. Yeah. He doesn't consider that garbage time.
All right, Tim, the week of doom and gloom is about to come to an end.
Michigan week next week.
There you have it. Out of the frying pan into the other frying pan.
Don't throw in the towel. Yeah, we got Michigan week next week.
And that's a wrap for the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, presented by Price Right RV. Lots to soak in. Almost time for kickoff. Thanks to my co-host, the Dean of Sports, Tim Staudt. Brock Palmbush rocking the ones and twos behind the glass. Producer Tim's around here somewhere doing great work with our social media. Look for Lansing Sports Network content on Facebook, YouTube, X, and more. Give us a follow. I'm Steve Goff. You can join us next Saturday as we get you ready for the team down the road coming to town. Of course, they haven't announced the kickoff just yet, but we'll be back with another edition of the Lansing Sports Network Tailgate Show, brought to you by the Price Right RV. Thanks to our sponsors for making today's show possible: Tailgaters Duncan Sunoco, Jersey Mike's in Okemos, Uptown Cheapskate, The Nut House, AC Hotels by Marriott, Lansing Brewing Company, Carpet Studios Flooring America, Harrison Roadhouse, Groesbeck Golf Course, Coors Light, Harrison Roadhouse, Duckett Brothers Distributing, Ohana Asian American Sushi Restaurant and Bar, Schupan Recycling, Playa Bulls, Feldman Chevrolet, GL Wilson Heating and Cooling, and Lennox. And now, stay tuned on the Lansing Sports Network, Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ and 1240 WJIM, Lansing's Big Talker, for Spartan Media Network's pregame coverage of MSU on the road in Bloomington. They'll take you all the way up to kickoff at 3:30 with George Blaha on play-by-play, along with J.U. Kalkrick and Will Tiemann on the sidelines, Dalton Shetler in the studio. And until next time, for all of us at the Lansing Sports Network Spartan Tailgate Show, brought to you by Price Right RV, go green.